And the first order of business is to approve the minutes from February 26th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Sheriff's Department update from Sergeant Larry Osterman.
Would you like a brief overview or of our operation, or are you looking for the calls of what we're seeing mostly right now first?
Whatever you choose to present to us first.
I will pass on to you in case you didn't know, because I've run into a lot of people that a lot of citizens we run into ask about how the sheriff's office patrols or supplies law enforcement services rather than a municipal police department. So you go on to, you can spend all day explaining how it's the same and it's different and so forth. So rather than go through all that, I thought I'd just tell you that we have, there's 6 of us assigned to Lake Elmo. We work for the sheriff's office, but in fact, we are the Lake Elmo Police Department. This is where we report to, this is where we work. Our equipment is here, our locker room is here, computers, squad cars, everything is here. If there's a call for service in this area, this Lake Elmo deputy goes to it. If they happen to be tied up on a call, and it's a higher priority call, then somebody from General Patrol comes in to cover that call. Or if we need backup, if it's you got a structure fire and we need a whole bunch of guys around to clear the road and make sure the firemen are protected while they're doing their job, so forth, those guys are coming in from General Patrol to help do that. It's another resource. They aren't all housed here. I'm the sergeant for this area, and we have 5 deputies. We have Mike Lindholm on day shift. He's been here for quite a while. We had Darren Ostertag. Went up to afternoon day relief, so he works 2 day shifts and the rest are afternoons, kind of fluctuates. Anthony Jarring is a recent add to our area after Deputy Crook went over to courts just a little while ago. So you'll see him around. You got Josh Ramirez, who's been here about a month and a half after Deputy Ramos was selected as the deputy to go to DWI unit. So he works strictly traffic enforcement for DWI. I have a different unit now. And the straight night guy is Stephen Papke, and he's very active also. You may see him around. Right now he's test wearing a vest, so you may see that in Lake Elmo. That you're probably familiar with our outer vest covers. It looks like our uniform shirt. The one he's trying out right now, a lot of research has been done on through University of Eau Claire, and a lot of different police departments are trying this out, where it's more of a militaristic look, which isn't really what we want. But what it does is it takes the weight off your back and your hips and puts the weight on your vest. So it's more of a load-bearing vest if you're in anything with the military stuff. It's brown, it's badge, all that kind of stuff on it, but it has other items attached to it. The taser, the radio, all those types of things. And just on the gun belt now, it's traditionally a duty belt. Now it's just like the firearm and ammunition for it. Everything else sits on a vest. And also your body armor is included inside that vest. So that's your regular body armor that we wear all the time. Recently everybody was issued higher caliber armor. They'll stop rifle rounds and so forth. Those are all black. They say sheriff across them. And they have all of the mags and all that kind of stuff on it to respond to hostile situations quickly. So everybody has those. You may see them in a squad car. If you see one of the deputies with one of those around, if they're wearing that point of body armor, you probably don't want to be right there. Go someplace else. So they have that kind of stuff. Squads are all outfitted with O2, AEDs, all the type of equipment they would need for a regular shift. We get fuel right here in Lake Elmo, so we don't have to leave for that. Evidence is we're close enough to LEC where we utilize that evidence space. They run over there. Somebody else would cover this area if they had to drop off whatever it is they took in as evidence, from drugs to impressions from a crime scene, whatever it may be. That all's housed over there. We don't house any of that kind of stuff here. Our squad video cameras are all uploaded in a hotspot. And there's one, the closest one for us to go to is at the LEC. So every once in a while I'll run a car over there in between shifts because the L3 gets loaded up and then it downloads it wirelessly. Our body cams are just like your phone. If you go to send a message or send somebody a picture, works the same way to a secure cloud. All our body cam footage is, the minute we stop the recording, it starts uploading to the cloud. So you never have to leave for that. That's pretty much the high-level view of the operation, the way it works in this area, which is very similar in Matamita, Hugo, Newport, Afton. They're all real similar to this model, I guess. The types of calls this time of year that are going up, which always happens to be, is a lot of the, not only, but it seems like the older generations of us are being targeted more so by fraud, whether it's a phone or it's email, whatever it may be. Everybody's probably heard about the email that you get about, I'm your cousin Joe and I'm in jail in Africa. Send me $10,000 or whatever. Believe it or not, that happens to people. People fall for that stuff and they send money, wire money to these people. Another thing that happens is I'm going to sell you this boat, give you a good deal on it, but you got to pay me half up front before I can get it to you. Boat seems to be used a lot this time of year. So you go and you buy all these cards, Target cards, whatever they may be. Then you either email them or tell them over the phone the numbers off the back, and then you never hear from them again. They've just drained all those accounts because you've already paid all that money. There's several people right here in Lake Elmo. One case is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they were taken for. So you get a lot of those types of calls. So if it sounds too good to be true, or it sounds like, this doesn't sound right, or I don't know that person, absolutely don't do it. And give us a call so we know what's going on with it. A lot of the stuff can be tracked back, at least a few locations, because it bounces all over the place, the different IP addresses and so forth. But some of it can get tracked back, like phone numbers. If people get their phone number, a lot of times we'll go there, we'll call the person back on the phone number, tell them who we are, click, and they'll never call again. And it's to a burner phone that you can't trace, more often than not. So a lot of fraud stuff right now. Construction thefts, knock on wood, haven't picked up much yet. They will, especially with all the construction in Lake Elmo. If we ask folks if they see anybody unusual in those construction site areas, if it seems unusual to you, it is. Then give us a call. Somebody will get it checked out. If you need a license plate number, if it's at the end of the day and you see people or somebody loading up wood or tools or whatever it may be, could it be a construction guy working late? Yep. More often than not, it's somebody that's not supposed to be there loading up stuff to do a project at their own house and they don't own those supplies. It's somebody else's new house that's being built, and they're losing all their lumber for it, that kind of stuff. So I guess if we'd ask the public to give us a call. If it seems unusual, call. There's nothing wrong with calling. Traffic, there's always traffic complaints. When I worked in this area in the early 90s as a street deputy, and I came back 2 years ago as a supervisor to this area, a lot of the same places we still get the complaints about. And the chief knows exactly what I'm talking about. We probably rattle them off and say the same places at the same time. A lot of times it's people who live in that area that are complaining about other people who live in that area. So especially in your own neighborhood, we sometimes get lackadaisical or in a hurry to get home, so forth. Just slow down a little bit, take your time, stop for that stop sign. Stuff will be a lot better. So kind of watch the traffic or get that message out to our locals anyway. Just kind of slow down a little bit. You got Lake Elmo Avenue, you got Jamaica, you got Manning, you got Hudson, you got all kinds of them that you can go on and on about. Did I burn up my time yet?
Depends on how much you want to use.
Stand for any questions if you have anything. I'm just trying to give you the high level and kind of see what you're looking for.
Anything was good?
Good. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Oh, nicely done.
See that? And no donuts.
Apparently I owe you now.
Okay, item number 4 is review the 2020 Fire Department CIP.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, before you, the packet looks like this, is the CIP, and the cover sheet is the summary, and then each individual one follows that. If you were on committee last year, you went through this process and approved the CIP. The only significant change this year is we added our 2 duty vehicles, the Tahoe CV1 and CV2. But we can go through each one of these. The reason for adding those, and they weren't on last year, is, I'll give you a brief history. They used to be in CIP, and then our last several purchases, and previous council and committees, we determined we'd go to a 5-year replacement on those Tahoes. Well, that way we were always under warranty, and we could regain some dollars by reselling those. If we sold them private party, we would strip the lights off and reuse what we can, all the emergency equipment, or we would sell it to an emergency agency as is. We've sold one to an emergency agency, but at the end of the day, with purchasing off state contract, as we do for those vehicles, and what we would recoup in selling the vehicles, the replacement costs ended up being in the $10,000 to $15,000 range is what it ended up costing us to replace and get a new vehicle under warranty. Since it had been some time since committee had reviewed and looked at our duty vehicles, it was determined to move it through the committee here today and include it in this CIP and let council determine how they want to move forward with, with the expenditures. Because if it's 15 grand, it's under the threshold for a CIP. But the initial purchase price puts it over that threshold, so it's kind of whichever way you want to look at it. But that's the reason it was added.
The 15 grand is the end cost if we get 30 or whatever, 33 in resale.
Depending on what we get for them, yeah, the resale value of it, yes. But, yeah, we figured, we looked at leasing and all, we explored all options time and time again, and we just determined purchasing on state contract, because we're getting these vehicles for about $32,000 in that range, in a stripped-down Tahoe. And then we add about, by the time we get graphics, and it's about 10 grand, or in that range, or a little bit more into that. But it can fluctuate. And the reason for the 60 in there is we don't know what the, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one here. The 48.5, that's, a little high estimate because we don't know what the contract will be next year, the state contract. So, we allow for a bit of inflation in there, so. So we can move forward through this. So I've touched on CV1, and that is the squad, that's a 2015. That's the one that I currently run. So on the sheet for that, you'll have to go back to, it's the second from the last in there. I'm going to go by year of replacement. So next year we would propose that in 2020, because it is a 2015 and that 5 years is up. If we stick with that plan. So the reason for replacement is we're under the warranty. We want to optimize our resale value and possibly offset of up to 35 grand if we sell as is, or like I mentioned, we remove the emergency equipment and reuse it. All depends on who is willing to purchase that vehicle. So pretty straightforward.
How realistic is that 35,000 resale on a 5-year-old vehicle?
Pretty good with the emergency equipment on it.
Oh, with the equipment.
With the equipment on it, yes. It's less for just the vehicle. But if you look at what, resale on, what I do is when I just go on Kelly Blue Book and I look at it and I take, one that's in good condition because we maintain them. And then we figure about half or 2/3 of the emergency equipment costs on there. And, we'll pull even if we sell it, we'll pull the radios and move those forward. But otherwise, we keep all the lighting on there, remove the graphics, and move it forward. That's based on what they're going for, neighboring departments that do that, and what we recaptured on our last one. If there's no questions on that, we'll move to the next one. In 2021, then we go back to the first item. That is our B1 or brush one. It's one of our grass rigs. That vehicle, that's a 15-year life cycle on that one. And that's it was projected to be a 15-year, but that would be a 2001 F-350 we'd be replacing. And that one, it's just the truck and graphics, because what we have in there is we have a skid unit that's removable. That we purchased off here. We replaced that a few years back, so we would move that forward onto the new vehicle. So we're basically just buying the pickup with the emergency lighting. We would update the lighting because it's very outdated, needs repairs, and it's hard to find parts now. We would go to the LED lighting versus the old mechanical strobes and stuff we have on there. So that one, that's a 2021 purchase. We figure about 60,000. You're basically just buying a pickup with some markings and lighting on it. And, you know, we do try to allow for inflation, and as next year, we would probably drill those numbers down a little bit, you know, more firm as we get to within a year of it, and we do that with all the vehicles. No questions on that. We will move to the next one, which in 2022, it's a bit of a busy year. There we're replacing our engine 1, that's currently at our Station 1. And that one, it's a straight up engine. It's, you know, just firefighting equipment. You know, we're right now, we have a rescue engine coming that is primarily our rescue truck that's also an engine. But that would just, straight up replacement of that one, and we would probably move that one into, you know, potentially move the current one into a reserve capacity, have it as a backup if needed, but that could be determined at the time. A lot of this also depends on where we're at with getting into a new station as well. But for right now, we have this projected to purchase in 2022. Next item in that year is our turnout gear replacement. The recommended, I got the wrong sheet on here. I don't know if I have a sheet for the turnout. Oh, here it is. Okay. They got out of sequence. We're projecting, we have to replace 24 sets of turnout gear. Maybe one or two more, maybe one or two less, depending on our numbers at the time. But that's based on our current numbers of 18 paid-on calls and 6 part-timers. And we recommend a replacement is 7 years on gear. We go 10 because we don't quite use it as much as St. Paul does, but yet our gear also retains carcinogens like any gear does. The liners fail over time, whether you wear that gear or not. So the protective level depreciates over the years. So that's our recommended replacement then is 60,000 in, what year do I have that? 2022 for turnout gear replacement. And that's the gear they wear just in the structure fires. To reduce our firefighters' exposure, and I'll touch on that briefly. I've brought that to the committee before about, you know, what we're learning now with cancer and firefighters, how it's, you know, many times more than the general public. But we've taken steps that we can take down. I mean, we wash it twice a year, whether they're exposed to carcinogens, whether they enter a structure or not. Anytime they do enter a hot zone, they wash it within a week of that. We rotate it through and we get it washed. We don't have the luxury of having 2 sets of gears for our personnel, so we've worked it out. Our part-timers wash the gear. But a few years back, we purchased what we call wildland rescue gear. It's to keep our folks out of that gear whenever possible. So if it's a wildland fire or for a car extrication type thing, it's a lighter weight gear without it doesn't have as much thermal protection as our structure gear. So we'll put them in and we protect our firefighters, but yet we limit their exposure to the carcinogens that are retained in their gear. So that was our option to do that. We've also come up with other ways. You know, we wash our equipment more and we stow the gear outside of the crew cabin. We've taken other steps to limit the exposure. But long story short, that, you know, we're due for replacement in 2022. Then we've also added the next Tahoe in there in that year. That was an add-on to this CIP because that one is a 2017, so it will be at its 5-year point if we want to stay with that program. And you can see that one's a little bit more. We just allow it for inflation. We don't know what contract pricing will be by that point, and we'll adjust that as we move forward. 2023, we have nothing. And then in 2024 is our final item in our 5-year CIP. I know you're going to find the page if I can't. That 90,000 is for our second brush truck. And the reason that figure is higher, oh, there we go. What are we, 4 pages in on that one? Currently, that one is doesn't have a skid unit on it. So at that point in time, we would purchase a pickup and a standalone skid unit, 'cause that gives us more options with those vehicles moving forward. The one right now, the pump and the cabinets are built onto the truck itself. We've modified that truck over the years to make it safer for a person. When we first bought it, it was okay to have a jump seat up on top of that truck, and people, we'd ride it and spray water. And we since removed that. We determined that wasn't a real safe thing to do, so we've modified that truck over the years. Well, that's what we used to do,
Great for parties.
We used to ride on the back of the trucks, too. We don't do that anymore, either. So anyway, that's our second brush truck. And the biggest reason we have these brush trucks is, our 2,100-acre regional park we have that, gets going every once in a while. And again, as moving forward, we're constantly evaluating our fleet plan and updating it. And some of this depends on our staffing levels, and if we do get the station and we're under one roof, we will adjust accordingly as we move forward. And we also take into account what our neighbors have. We for example, one of the tenders, Oakdale doesn't have a tender anymore, so that came out of our rotation. So, we do look at these things big picture, what our needs are. It's based on our neighbors as well. So that's it for the 5-year CIP. I'll entertain any questions you might have regarding any of the vehicles.
I see you have the priority marked on some of these items, vehicles. Does that mean you can shift them around a little bit if necessary to direct funds to a different vehicle or something?
If need be, we can look at it if we're directed to do so. Yes.
I mean, that's giving you the flexibility that
Yeah.
you can fill in a void someplace by.
I mean, if you look at, brush one, for example, that was on a 15-year replacement, and we're gonna be at 19 years? No, we're gonna be at 20 years. It's a 2001.
Yeah.
So, we evaluate the condition of the vehicle at the time. When we purchase it, we plan, okay, in 15 years, we might have to replace this vehicle. We're getting 25-plus years out of our engines. If you look at engine one, that's a 1997 chassis. So, and that's due for replacement in 2022. So that's 25 years out. We got no life out of that one. It shows its age.
I'd like to ask you a question about, everybody thinks new is better, and I'm referring to the construction of the vehicles. How do they stack up when you take a 15-year-old vehicle versus one that's manufactured today? The quality of it, the lifespan of it, is that changing? Are you seeing any change in it? They're built heavier, built lighter, or?
They're able to do more with these trucks now, the technology. We're seeing bigger ladders on smaller trucks, for example, because of engineering and hydraulics and all the things they could do in electronics. There's probably more things to go wrong with the electronics. There's more electronics than ever. It's just like your cars.
Right.
Look at your vehicles. What goes wrong with them usually? Electronics, those kind of things. And we have some of the same issues with them. But they're safer. They're built safer. We not that long ago, we didn't have seatbelts in the fire trucks. And now they're all automatics. We still have one stick shift on the department that is getting replaced as we speak. So there's changes. A lot of them are safety changes. The emissions play into it. They had to take that stuff into account with our fire trucks. But we're also moving forward. We're trying to do more and be more efficient with less. Our last several vehicles, we've tried to combine a couple vehicles for efficiencies and our lower staffing levels. Our trucks 20 years ago, we were pretty much guaranteed 5 people on that truck going out the door. Now, for the most part, we have 2, and they roll out with that, and get things established until support staff arrives. But there's a lot of changes in it, and they can do more on these trucks too as well. The features they can build into them for us to be able to combine them and make them safer. The price tag goes up, there's more electronics, it's just, yeah.
So for the engine with the potential of not replacing it depending on if we're in one station model, is there any update on that? I mean, or we can talk about that later if that's more appropriate.
There hasn't been discussion recently. I think they're still looking at the next few years, getting plans in place
Okay.
to get things rolling with that building. But we haven't started any movement with design or anything like that.
So are they starting to budget it into facilities planning, or is there anything do you know?
I can't speak to that, but we're going through the CIP and budget cycle right now, so maybe this year's budget, something there'll be conversation about that. As we get closer, every year we're getting closer to that.
Okay.
So, and we continually evaluate it too. When we start, we look at this, go, okay, right now as we're operating, this is what we need to plan on. And maybe we say at that time we need a bigger truck, maybe we say we need a smaller truck, or maybe we don't need the truck. We don't know until we get to that point.
I was just curious really
yeah.
about the status of.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things we're up against in Lake Elmo is, we have the old established Lake Elmo mainly to the north with long, windy, small driveways. And we run our ladder truck first out on fires. But we know there's driveways we can't get that in. So we have to, pre-plan and accommodate for that and get a smaller engine in there because it's still gonna burn. We have to get our firefighting equipment in there.
Yep.
So these are things we have to take into account as well, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on the CIP? Okay. I guess then what council would be looking for is a recommendation, a motion and recommendation from committee to move forward with, the CIP as is, or any recommended changes you might have. And then we'll move it forward to council.
Is there anything not in here that you would like to see in here?
No,
Perfect world, unlimited funds?
no.
Okay.
No additional equipment that you're still looking for?
No, not that falls into the CIP. This is a $25,000 threshold, so below that.
Okay.
Ask me at budget time, I'll give you a whole list of stuff under 25 grand.
Fair enough. Just wanted to make sure it was asked.
Thank you for that.
Do we need a motion on that CIP?
Need a motion and a second, and vote on
Okay.
recommendation.
Motion to approve as is?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay,
Dave. All good. It's a long day.
I know what you meant. So now I got some updates for you. At our last meeting, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about staffing and some ideas. And just, you understand some things we've done. We have since recruited one of our younger personnel, got a Facebook page going for us. And I'm gonna say I actually did my first post on it. We were out on a call, and I posted that we had a road closed to it, so I don't know if anybody saw it. We're out on a gas leak, but they're pretty excited about that they have it, and our guys have been, or our folks have been, adding to it. I don't know how many hits or views or whatever you call it we're getting, but we have the Facebook page. It's in place. We also put a bleep on the last utility bills that went out about hiring, and we actually pulled in a potential recruit off of that. And he's lived in Lake Elmo and came back now that he's, has a family and kids and moves into Easton Village. So he's pretty excited, been to a couple meetings, but we still need more, but we're really glad to have him, coming on, and the enthusiasm's nice. So we're seeing results. you know, not to the level we'd really like, but we're seeing results. So we're still looking for ideas and ways to reach out in Lake Elmo, but that's a couple steps we've taken since our last meeting.
How many open positions do you have right now for paid on call?
For paid on call, we have, we're at 19, with 3 of them being probationary members. 2 should be completing their probation very shortly here, and they'll be on as full firefighters. Excuse me, and then the one that isn't even on probation yet that I just mentioned.
Okay,
And we are fully staffed on our part-timers right now.
okay.
I hate to say it out loud, I might curse us or jinx us, but, so that's pretty good. We'll take it when we can get it. But we're still looking for the paid-on calls.
How many open paid on call do we have, sorry, today? What's the total?
We're allotted 32,
32, okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember if it's 24 or 32.
yeah. And, you know, we did implement the, outside of the part-time shifts, and I should have added this on here, but, you know, we open that up to our, like on weekends, our paid-on calls can sign up for shifts, like they do during our weeknight duty crews. They're not in the station, they're at home, but they sign up and say, yeah, I'm gonna come. And that's going very well. We're very happy with the response we're getting for that. So that gives us a minimal guaranteed response. At least we know somebody's coming. So that's been going pretty well for us. Anything else on staffing? We're not there yet, so I don't want to paint the rosy picture. I mean, we still need folks, so if anybody's watching out there, get a hold of us. We need you. Looking for the paid-on calls. The rescue engine build looks more, last time I updated you was probably July, August, looking more like August, September. We are pretty soon here going to be going up to do a build conference. We'll go up there and take a look at the truck where it's at. And I'd invite committee if you want to attend. We go up to the Rosenbauer plant up in Wyoming, and, you know, it's under construction. And you can see the process and how it's going, and we look at it and make corrections or whatever we have to do. And, you know, and we're also going to talk to them about, we're going to go over writing specs for our tender as well. I've sent them our checklist on that. We've reached out to 2 vendors on that. And we just thought we could sit down with our truck committee and them at the same time and see what they want to put together for us. So if committees, you know, if you're interested, when we set something up, I'll just push an email out to you, and if you're available, you can ride up there with us and see what it's all about.
I'd like to go up there and see.
Okay. All right.
Certainly let everybody know.
Yeah, I'll push it out to
Available,
committee.
yeah.
But I would guess that's probably going to be maybe sometime in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We'll be going up there. The tender replacement, I just updated you on that. We're speaking to the vendors on that. The SCBA replacement, that was a CIP for this year, and that's a NFPA requirement. We have to replace those. We got as much life out of them. We got 15 years out of them. And we did apply for a federal grant for that, and we have not heard back yet. I'm going to go with the no news is good news at this point. We haven't gotten a Dear John letter yet, so that we'll take that as good news. And meanwhile, our internal committee's been testing out 3 different vendors. They've narrowed it down to 2 vendors, 2 different brands of air packs. And next Monday, they're going to hopefully make a final decision. We've had the department involved, too. The committee looks at them, and then they bring it to the department and touch them, feel them, use them, see what's good, what's bad, what they like, what they don't like. We get all their feedback and throw it in the hopper and see what comes out. So we'll get it down to 1 vendor for the air packs. So with that, those are my updates.
Then regardless of whichever vendor it is, that you'll use our existing equipment for refilling them, we wouldn't have to replace that?
Yeah,
or is
no,
that-
our
is that-
compressor that we got on our last grant, actually, we purchased our current packs off a grant as well.
Okay.
We were fortunate with that. And at that time, we got a breathing air compressor in-house. So, yeah, we're good moving forward. It handles high pressure, and we're good to go.
Okay.
So,
Great, thank you.
Little oversight on my part, I want to back up to the CIP. I think we should probably read Committee Member John Arrett's letter into the minutes, because he did, when I pushed this packet out to committee, he knew he wouldn't be here, but he responded to me. Chair's okay, I'll just read it, and,
Oh, sorry, you're the chair.
Oh,
See, I'd rather not read it. If you're willing to read it, then please read it.
okay.
Unless Dave wants to read it.
Dave, you want to read it?
doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll just read it. Well, since he says greetings, chief, I'll read it. Okay.
We can
Yeah.
role play.
It's addressed to you.
These guys are flexible.
Thank you for the email, nicely prepared. Since I can't make the meeting, and after thorough review, I have a couple of questions, and these are regarding the CIP. No worries on a reply. He wants to know, do the amount provided on the CIP represent an inflation factor? As I explained, as we get closer, then, we bump them as we see fit, and we try to keep them as actual as possible, but, within a year prior, a year, 2 years prior, depending on the size of the purchase, try to drill the numbers down a little better and get more actual. And if not, he's wondering why for future conversation, but we do, so I would negate that. For public record, please represent his full support of the fire department CIP is published, so he is in support. Or if increased to reflect inflation, job well done, good luck in a couple weeks. New business, and I guess I'll hold right there, and when we get down to new business, we can read that portion of his letter, if you would like.
Sure.
Okay.
So right now, we're at old business, action items.
And that was something that came out of our last meeting, I think, when we had, there was a lot of conversation regarding staffing and a lot of brainstorming. It was a good brainstorming session. But out of that, committee members were going to come up with ideas to reach out, various ways to educate the community on, not just our staffing issues, but also just in general about the fire department. And we did that through our Facebook page, and we're trying to reach out as best we can. But the committee members were challenged with coming up with some additional ideas, maybe in their, through their HOAs, reaching out, maybe getting us out to visit your HOAs, or any other thoughts you might have had or ideas. So,
Okay, that takes care of old business. Anything you want to
What
add?
comes to mind to me is just the kids, my kids come home from elementary school and middle school and ask questions or tell me things, and I realize that not every home has a, school-age kid in there, but especially the elementary, if, I know that you guys do some programs with them, but to get in there and, if there's 3 questions to say, ask your parents, do they know that maybe a half of them will catch that, but you're gonna get potentially get some outreach through that.
mm-hmm.
I don't know what those questions would be, though, but I'd be happy to try and help figure out some ideas.
I just met with my captain this morning, who oversees our fire prevention program, and our Safe Haven program that we do jointly with the Sheriff's Department about home inspections for, prevent against burglaries and fire safety and that type of stuff. We had a major hurdle when we initially launched that. It was the mail system really didn't cooperate with us. But it's kind of gotten a little resurgence here. We've been pushing it out again a little bit more. We're getting some feedback. We're trying to reach out and identify some target areas. But along with it, our part-time firefighters now, and now that they're feeling a little more comfortable in their roles and they've been on a while, we're getting some of them to get more involved in our fire prevention program because they're on shift. We can count on them to go out and deliver our message, which was difficult in the past with the elementary school and that type of stuff, because we didn't know how many folks we'd have available. So we are revisiting that and going to ramp that up a little bit more. And it's tough now that school's out, but we want to catch them before they, disappear for the summer, all the principal and the teachers, and reach out to them. And see if we can get something established. We had a program years ago that was pretty good at school, more than just coming down and getting a plastic hat and looking at the fire trucks. We want to get the message out there to the young kids, because capture them young, and it's time to get them. So anyway, we are ramping that up a little bit on our end, and the safe haven. We're feeling pretty good about it, so. But we're still looking for ideas from committee members, so if you got anything, just forward them to me. I'll let you off the hook now.
Okay.
I'll hold your feet to the flame.
Okay, we'll return to new business.
Okay,
Doing so, we will return to the letter that.
okay.
you
So
sent
under,
to me.
Committee Member John Aaron, under new business, he wanted to add, he remains hopeful to have a discussion about street widths. 27 feet should have no parking on one side. Under 27, no parking both sides. He'd like to see future roads, planned roads, and retroactive on existing roads, based on construction types, proximity of fuels, openings on exposures, tight lots requiring frequent on-street parking. As a person living in one of these no fire code compliant roads, I would fully support the updates. Additionally, when we add an average Minnesota winter, snow storage complicates the problem. Planners build really nice-looking areas, however, not practical for Minnesota and have little regard real-world fire problems. Thank you for looking out for Mrs. Smith. John Arrett. Just incidental FYI to that, council workshop next week, one of their topics of discussion will be road widths. So that is being revisited by the council right now. So I don't know if committee will, I don't know if you will have discussion on it. We'll see what happens with the, at the workshop. But myself, the engineer, staff will be there for that discussion.
Now, does that go through the planning commission also?
It's at a council workshop. I don't know what their direction will be at the end of that workshop. So we'll know more next week after the workshop, where, if they want to push that to committees for more research, or if they want to take action on it. I'll be there, enlightening them on fire code requirements and recommendations. And they'll take it all into account. Our engineer will be there as well.
Is the engineer on board with wider streets?
We have current city standards. And the fire code is what it is. We do have some difficult streets in Lake Elmo. That we have to deal with parking and no parking, and then we send Sergeant Larry out to enforce it, and it's a struggle, and, old and new. As John alluded to, his area down there, he's down in Boulder Ponds area, and people complying with the no parking, and so it's a tough balancing act, but we'll see where council goes with it next week.
I think on the engineering, there's been occasion that is brought up at council meetings to narrow some of these streets. And what the city engineer, what I've heard him say at several different meetings over several years is the fact that you don't save any money by narrowing the asphalt on the street. They like to maintain them with the original width rather than try to narrow it up and sod the areas and the expense of finishing it off of the asphalt. So I don't really think engineering would be in favor of narrowing the width of these streets from what I've heard, or with future utilities put in, sometimes I get the idea, we don't need that width on the asphalt. And it's been brought up that they narrow them up, but I don't think it'll happen, to be honest with you. It's been discussed quite a bit at council meetings.
Well, I wouldn't wear the hat I wear if I didn't say the standards in the fire code I have to support, because they're tried and true.
Definitely,
There's a
yes.
reason they're in there.
Right.
But we're also getting into, is it back-to-back of curb or face-to-face? Because that's a difference in that road width. And there's a lot of things to consider when we do this. But, we've had many discussions about road widths. The bottom line at the end of the day, we just want to be able to get our fire trucks in there, get an ambulance to them, and, when need be. So,
These cul-de-sacs would be a major problem if they're not big enough, I would think.
well, there are standards in the fire code as well regarding dead-end roads, cul-de-sacs, and what's required, and we need to turn our trucks around. So, they're all there. So we'll see what happens with the conversation at the workshop,
That workshop is coming up when?
the 11th.
Is that
Yeah.
open or closed?
I don't know.
I think you can sit there, but you may not be able to comment.
Yeah, I think that might be it, yeah. I think all the meetings are open to the public, I'm sure.
Right. Okay, does that take care of all new business?
I have nothing else.
Andy,
I
anything?
don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Our next meeting is to be determined.
Does committee see a need for another additional meeting coming up soon, or maybe if something gets brought back to committee? Unless you'd like to get together, you have any topics you want to discuss, let me know. But at this point, I don't have anything pressing. Budget's gonna be right around the corner, we'll get together for that. Plus, we're getting into that tough little summertime here where it's tough to get people together. But unless committee has anything, if something comes up my way, I'll forward it out to you, or if any direction from council, and we can try and call a meeting and reschedule it a few times.
Sounds good.
All right. Do we hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Meeting adjourned at
5:16.
5:16 PM.
You made your 5:30.